Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Kayatano.
And thank you for joining us this morning. A lovely Monday morning.
Indeed it is. The sun is out.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day. Time to get up and get started.
Yeah, and after the extreme heat over the weekend, I was pleasantly surprised to wake up to a nice windy morning.
Yeah.
Let's hope that that's a shift that will stick around. But nonetheless, we'll be checking in on our weather in just a bit. But we do have our birthday shout out.
We are saying happy birthday this morning to Z Edgel.
That's
happy
right.
Happy birthday, Z Edgel.
That's a very special happy birthday.
And this is the acclaimed Belizean writer, author.
Yeah.
If you've read Becca Lamb or In Times Like These, those are two of the works that she's more famously known for.
That's right.
So there's Z Edgel.
And so we do hope that you have a great day today. And of course, that greeting comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. And do remember that if you want your loved one featured in the birthday shout out, go ahead and send us a message, an email, or call us here at the office. All right, we'll check in with the weather now. And we have Francisca on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good, thanks. How about you?
I'm saying how pleasantly surprised I am to wake up to a nice windy morning.
It's windy, right?
Yeah.
Your type of weather.
Precisely. And especially since it's kind of been hot and stagnant for a bit.
Yes, yes.
So what does that mean for today? Can we expect winds throughout the day?
Yes, we'll continue to see east to southeasterly winds, 10 to 20 knots, and this will produce moderate seas. So, in terms of skies, it will be sunny, a few cloudy spells, and tonight we'll see a few cloudy spells as well. We'll be seeing isolated showers of thunderstorms today and an increase over the south tonight.
What about those high temperatures?
All right. We're going for 89 along the coast today, 94 inland, 86 up in the Maya Mountains. Overnight temperatures a little bit on the warm side again, 81.
that have either been left abandoned on a makeshift runway somewhere in the south, central, or northern part of the country. I say that in that order because we have reported on drug planes in the Sarstoon area. We reported on drug planes in the Coastal Road area, and of course in the north.
Yeah.
There's a particular area in the north where our border with Mexico and Guatemala, it's a pocket, if I may. And this is an area of activity, a hotspot, for want of a better description. So the Ministry of National Security issued a release yesterday in light of the fact that there were questions regarding what had appeared to be the landing of such an aircraft. And if you allow me to read from what the release says, and then we'll be able to discuss thereafter. Following up on confirmation that a suspected drug plane landed this morning in the Blue Creek area of the Orange Walk district, with the crew and cargo making good their escape, the Ministry of National Security has issued the following statement. On a daily basis, there are members of the security forces of Belize deployed to intercept planes attempting to land illegally in Belize. These planes are suspected to have drugs on board, destined for the North American market. Belize does not yet have military radar tracking capability. In the time being, Belize relies on an external regional network that generates tracking information as soon as suspect planes leave South America. These aircrafts must offload their cargo somewhere in Central America or Mexico, after which it is transported overland to the north. Once information of a suspect plane tracking its way towards Belize is received, our security forces deploy to as many possible landing sites as our human resources allow. The fact is that there are so many possible landing options, including existing roads and highways, which, by the way, cannot just simply be destroyed, that there is an element of uncertainty involved in predicting exactly where a plane may land. The Ministry of National Security absolutely does not have the resources to cover every single landing option, and the pilots of these planes make real-time adjustments and changes to throw the security forces off track to evade interception. Every day, this is what plays out as our security forces are deployed based on tracking information received from our regional partners, including Mexico and the USA. The Belizean people can rest assured that our security forces are applying their best efforts in fighting these very sophisticated transnational drug traffickers along with our regional partners, and we look forward to our next successful plane capture and drug bust. So at this point, Marlene, I'm assuming that there is somewhat of a ratio, as I mentioned earlier. The number of successful intercepts and arrests versus the number of successful evasions and movement. And this admits what we've all come to know. It's commonplace that we don't have the technology or the resources in place. However, it begs the question as to what are we doing, what else can be done. I know that this entire part of the Americas, the United States Southern Command sort of has, I wouldn't say jurisdiction, but it operates within the area. It works very closely with the countries in Central America as well. And so perhaps there's something that can be done to try to assist the law enforcement arm to be able to either track these aircrafts or provide us with the satellite or technology that is required to be able to follow and make the intercepts. It's an open call, I'd say.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to see the reaction from people when there is the discovery of a new, what is suspected to be a drug plane, and I think all indications shows that's what it is, although there's no proof of the substance on the plane itself. I think where the discussion on the issue of resources is an absolutely valid one. I think the question is, how determined are we to intercept these particular planes? We've heard where security personnel have spoken about liaising with Mexico, requesting people to send in tips or to call in. You know, we're at Channel 5 on Coney Drive. We can hear a Tropic Air landing in the middle of the day. you're talking about a jet in the middle of the night. There's no way nobody hears it. Whether or not people call in, whether or not there's any conversation that takes place. Usually after you guys go out on the scene, you speak to residents in the area, they say that they hear a plane. They say that they hear it landing or they hear it hovering or whatever it is. I don't think anybody is foolish enough to think that this has not always been a problem in this country. What has changed is the technology to be able to disseminate information.
Yeah.
When something would happen in the past, it'd be word of mouth. Now
we're
people
able to
have a
communicate
phone,
real time.
and they just have to pass the area and take the picture, and it goes viral, and everybody has some kind of proof to say this has occurred. Now, we have not seen many arrests made in these issues. And in fact, one of the most sensational one included police officers and a police officer and a special constable. And I think when you put all these pieces together, and they're all just pieces of different stories, people start to develop their own. And I think that that's where the conversation or the information coming up from the national security, they have to be a bit more aggressive than saying, oh, we just don't have the resources. Because I don't think that's enough for the public to hear right now. These jets are extremely expensive. So consider this. If I'm willing to leave behind a jet that is worth this much, what's the value of what's on it?
That's an accurate way of looking at it. My perspective on this, Marlene, is to raise the possibility of perhaps looking at establishing a presence, a military presence in that particular area of the country. Simply because it is not the first time we're hearing of aircraft landings in the general Blue Creek area. So perhaps if the ministry were to look into establishing some sort of a camp or a base or some permanent presence there, maybe that helps to deter the landings in that particular area, seeing as though that is the more frequented area for these kinds of activities. It's a thought. It's a thought. I don't know what considerations have been made by the authorities and officials to look at it, but it's something worth
and then
thinking
we won't
about.
be naive enough to know that to not say that these are extremely dangerous people that are usually involved in the illegal trafficking of drugs. But what you're saying, I think, is kind of a common sense thought that most people who see these issues think. If you put all the discovered planes on a map, there's a very clear concentration of where these planes land.
That's what I'm saying. If you were to triangulate more or less where exactly these kinds of activities happen, as I mentioned earlier, we are able to identify very, I'm not an expert in the field, but my limited access in terms of being a reporter allows me to understand that that particular area that I identified earlier is a hotspot. That area where the three borders meet is where a lot of this activity takes place. So perhaps we need to ramp up our presence there and make it a permanent camp or some installation, and for us to be able to move from there as sort of like a forward operating base, if that were the word that describes it. Right? So that is just one area that we're going to be touching on today in the newscast in respect of this latest landing and the release from the ministry. I know that there's also a team headed north this morning where there was a murder in the Corozal district, in Corozal town to be exact. An individual, 66-year-old Paul Anthony Castillo, lost his life. This was on Saturday at 1:15 a.m. where Corozal police visited his residence on number 5 South Street, and when they arrived there, they observed the individual in bed with multiple chop wounds to the body. So it's an elderly person, and this, I'm not certain, police have not been able to ascertain as yet what the motive is, but whenever you have instances where anybody is killed, let alone an adult, an ageable person or a child, it raises serious concerns, very serious concerns. And there were also shooting incidents here in Belize City, as well as fatal traffic accidents in the south. So our plate is going to be full today in terms of being able to go in and trying to investigate and get to the bottom of these incidents. As I mentioned, the drug plane landing will be perhaps the primary focus of our newscast today.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of questions there. We'll
Yeah.
see what answers we get. But of course, that's it for us with the Eye on the News. All right, and now it's time for us to get into our show for today.
This morning, our first segment will include a discussion on adolescent mental health. And we're going to have a team of 3 persons come in this morning, and we're going to have that topic to get a handle of what goes on with young people and their state of mind.
And another big event coming up is the Belize International Film Festival. And we're going to have a representative of the Film and Media Arts Unit at Niche telling us all the details about the upcoming events and workshops.
And our final segment for this morning, we will be visited by our friends from the University of Belize as they discuss the macaroni competition. And I'm not going to tell you what that is.
I know, right?
So you got to stick around and see for yourself what the macaroni competition is all about.
That's right. So that's our lineup for this morning. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we'll get right into the show. So stay tuned.
And welcome back to the first segment of our show this morning. As I mentioned prior to the commercial break, we will be embarking upon a conversation that deals with adolescence and mental health. That being said, we have with us on the couch Counselor Amy Jex. Good morning. We also have in the middle Renata Samuel. She's a representative of the Department of Youth Services. Good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, Juliet Simmons from the Ministry of Health.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. A rather broad topic, adolescent mental health. Where do you guys want to begin from?
Oh, why are you putting it on us? If you think it's a broad topic, we have even more.
Yeah.
When we look at young people and their state of mind, I'm putting it very loosely, right? What ages primarily are we dealing with?
Well, young people, that kind of a wider range. But when we talk about adolescents, we're talking 10 to 19.
Okay.
Because when we talk about youth, it's 14 or 15
14 to 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
14
so.
to 29.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a whole different level of stress after 20 than below 20.
So.
But developmentally, there's a lot that's taking place between the adolescent ages,
That's right.
especially when you talk about brain development. And that's kind of where I wanted to start. Understanding adolescent mental health means understanding mentally where they are, and that's a hard thing to understand. So let's use that as a jumping point.
Well, I think it's a bit different because if we're talking about developmentally and then we're talking about mental health,
Yeah.
they overlap,
Yeah.
but they're not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
But it allows you to be able to differentiate between what is normal behavior and what would be deemed as something that you need to get checked out. Is that the
Right.
case?
Right, because when we have mental health issues or mental health conditions, you know what the conditions that we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about depression, we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about psychosis, schizophrenia, those type of things that comes to mind when we say mental health.
Yeah.
And stress, how you manage your stress.
Yeah.
Normal behavior, what adolescents normally do. Hang out, play music.
And that's why it's important to do the work that we are doing, especially with the Ministry of Health, doing a lot of research because we need to differentiate who requires more services than other people. So we can go out and say, oh, maybe 25% of the population has this disorder. So we put out enough treatment for 25% of the population. But how do we target it? So that's where the Ministry of Health and working along with UNICEF and, you know, all of these things are coming along with that so that we can target the people who actually require these services.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so much changes that a child would go through during that time. And, you know, I'm reflecting last Monday or last week, we discussed the issue of the hostile and uncontrollable children. And it's still something that's stuck in my mind. Because we know that by nature, when we're teens, we're just a bit rebellious. You know, we don't, for some reason, and you can explain to me because you are professionals, you just don't like the rules as much. Or the authority was usually a parent who tries to tell you to do your homework or go to sleep. And so this concept of uncontrollable behavior, that a child can't regulate themselves, is something that still plagues me. And I want to use that as an example to say, okay, if I have a child who's, let's say, 12, who to me seems like they're struggling with regulating themselves, adhering to rules, or perhaps more sad than I expect them to be, how do I differentiate between, okay, that's just normal teenage behavior, or there's something wrong and I need to step in?
Well, you're looking at a couple of things there because you have met your child since the day that your child was born. So you see certain personality trends from the beginning. And there are some children who at 1-2 years old would have a little bit of a different personality from your other children. So you can have a sense from early what their personality is leaning. You have other social issues, genetic issues that would contribute as well. But the most important thing is to be aware of who your child is, when your child needs more attention, when your child needs more services, so you can see. So what we are here for is to provide those resources. Yes, it's a little bit tricky to say I need help, but that's why we have these media things so that people can say these are the flags that you could notice, and that's how you can see. One of the things that we have been doing with UNICEF and the Ministry of Health is doing the MMAP.
Yeah, we're doing a measurement of mental health among adolescents at the population level. So basically, we have been preparing for this quite some time now, all through 2019. But what we're about to do in the next few weeks is to go out and pilot with 300 or so adolescents. So we want to interview and find out if they are, if there's anxiety, if there's depression, suicidality, functional impairment. Those are the 4 areas where we're studying.
Yeah.
So, because from our data at the Ministry of Health, the adolescent that we've seen, like 70 to 74% of them that comes to our clinic or to our services are suffering with anxiety. So now we want to, I mean, that's just the persons that come to our clinic. So what we're doing now is to pilot, and from the piloting, then next we go to the house-to-house countrywide to find out really what the data is. Is it really anxiety? Is it more than that? Test for suicidality as well, because majority of the suicide attempts is among the age group 15 to 19.
Okay, so
And one of the things that I've been working with them is how do you ask these questions, right?
Spend a lot of time on that one.
We have been spending months on how do you ask these questions, because we have the standardized questions internationally, and those are being translated. But you can't ask a child. One of the things that you asked was, how do you know the differences? One of the main things is change in eating patterns. How do we ask a Belizean, maybe 14-year-old girl, if her eating patterns are different, and what is a normal eating pattern versus what is an abnormal eating pattern? You have some children who they are 5 years old and you cannot make them eat breakfast, right? And you have some children who will have like the biggest lunch ever. So then how do you ask a Belizean adolescent, are you eating normally? That is one of the biggest flags for depression, anxiety, for a lot of these mental health issues, even PTSD. So how do we flag that? How do we ask a child a question? And how do we make a parent notice that your child is having a different eating pattern? And how do you notice the sleeping pattern? Who are you afraid of? Are we looking at normal attachment, or are we looking at paranoia? So these are the things that with this research we're looking into, and Juliet and I will sit down, and we have sat down, and we're asking, how do we ask it? Is it normal to say, are you eating okay? How do you ask that in Creole? You eat all right? And
my definition of okay is different from your definition of okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then how do we take that away from they're not eating okay due to mental health or due to financial reasons? Because there are people who don't have a food at home, so they cannot eat normally, but that doesn't mean that they have depression or anxiety. Or so looking at just
or if
screening.
I'm a teenage girl with body image issues, maybe I stop eating just because I want to lose weight. And let me get Renata in here, because I know that you've been involved in this process as well, in being able to give input as not only a young person, but you have a bunch of young people that go to the department after school, so you get exposed to some of the issues that they're going through. Tell me, what's your perspective in terms of the understanding of mental health for adolescents?
I think when it comes to mental health and adolescents, they actually see it as a problem, and that's a beautiful thing right now, because I remember, besides from the HAT that we did, which is another study besides from the MAP, because they were doing it at the same time. And HAT stands for Helping Adolescents Thrive. And that is assessing the well-being now of young people. So the same idea, if they're actually happy, what is causing them to not feel happy, and so forth. And also the part that I love the most is what would help you to feel more happy, or happier, sorry. And looking at that, we had a lot of young people talk about their parental problems, and also school, and how the teachers treat them. Bullying, like the basic stuff that you think young people be unhappy for, they identify those things, because those are the same problems they're having over and over again.
So let me ask this quickly. Have you noticed any particular trend among young people in so far as mental health issues and what have you? I ask because perhaps when we were younger, we weren't really looking at it from that point of view, but it seems to be somewhat of a more prevalent thing these days. Is it that you're noticing certain patterns or trends year on year? How does that work?
I wouldn't say it's like, it could be called a pattern. If you look at it, really. I mean, it's the same things that you see people recurring over and over and over. I mean, it starts from home, parents aren't giving you attention, or parents are abusing you or something like that. Then you come to school and then you have the teachers that don't know how to discipline you. Then you go in your environment and you're being peer pressured to do things that you don't really want to do. And then it's a lot for a young person to deal with. And then, especially like Juliet was talking about, the 15 to 19 year age is like we have the most attempted suicides there. In fact, from 2014 to 2017, there's over 400 attempted suicides in Belize. And like over 400. And the big number is from 15 to 19. So it's looking at there is a problem. Something is happening with our young people. They're unhappy. They're not saying it because social media obviously depicts that you're always happy. And so what is really going on? Because back in the days, I don't think your feelings were talked about as compared to now, which is a good thing too.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so like back then we weren't
the
really
discipline and everything was different too as well, because like hitting a child would or disciplining a child would be seen as, okay, you're trying to, like, you know, help that child. Nowadays, disciplining a child, sometimes people do it out of frustration, and it does not seem as you're trying to help that child. You're doing that because you're upset about something going on and so forth. And a lot of young people sometimes see it as that too. Maybe it could be that you're trying to like discipline them properly, but then, as it was highlighted in the study too as well, some teachers don't have the capacity to discipline, and the parents don't have the capacity to parent. So like, we're looking at how are we, if we're comparing back in the days to this day, obviously dynamics are really different. So
the other thing that would really add to that is our awareness of what we're looking for. So one of the things that was mentioned is bullying. Bullying has been happening all the time, but back in the day it was teasing. Oh, mommy, this person teased me, you know, and then like you feel bad about it, but it wasn't called bullying. You had kids in the class who were very active, the rude kids. Now maybe they have ADHD, maybe they have something else. So now with more awareness, now that we are spending more time, now that there are more professionals and we know that there are these labels, we start looking for these things. There are a lot of kids maybe who had traits of autism when we were going to school a few years ago, but we say, oh, that person antisocial, which means very different from what an antisocial personality is. But we say, oh, that person doesn't like being around people, but now we could label that person as being on the autism spectrum. So we look at all these different things, and the way our culture has dealt with it differently because of the greater awareness that we have in mental health. When I went to high school, there were few high schools that had school counselors, but now majority of the high schools have school counselors. So you have a particular person, and we have school counselors in the primary schools as well. So, and the teachers are being trained. Part of their training includes how to deal with special needs, how to identify some of these things. So we have greater awareness in the community about mental health diagnoses and issues. And even though we've had self-esteem issues, we've had bullying, and we've had other things in these high schools, we used to label them differently. And so there was a different way to approach them.
Now I want to add, what have been done? A lot of work has been put into the life skills courses, where we're teaching coping skills, because that is another issue that we're realizing, that the adolescents they're not coming with the coping skills that maybe we had, if I could say. So a lot of work went into life skills. We put a lot of mental health stuff into it that wasn't there before. So, and there's more coming along, because we're teaching, we're doing some trainings on mental health literacy. The HAT is another factor that we want to include down the road. So there is things coming along. We are creating that awareness as we're talking about.
My question is, are you getting sufficient buy-in from the wider population about being able to seriously tackle the state of the mental health of our adolescents? And I ask that because there's Ministry of Health representatives, there's certain representatives on an NGO level, the MHA, and I think for the most part in the media as well, you know, once you get your issues out, people, we transmit this information. But your everyday John and Jane public probably watching and saying, there you go again, trying to give Pickney disease that they don't have, they look normal, they're just
Try to
rude,
label
they're
them.
just not behaving. In the schools, if your child doesn't look disabled, as in actual physical ability is missing, forget trying to convince them. Maybe maybe the principal buys in, maybe the counselor at the school buys in, but when that child is in that classroom by themselves, forget it. They look normal. You're just trying to find an excuse as to why they're not doing their work. Anxiety isn't real. They just didn't prepare for their tests. Now, these clearly aren't things that I believe, but I'm just saying these are things that we hear. I hear everyday people saying, oh, there you go again, trying to diagnose another child with something. They just need tough love. They just need discipline. So how do we move from, and I think we've done tremendous growth already, but it does have to be widespread, because your contact with a child will be limited versus the wider public or their school systems.
This is work that has been happening for the past 40 years. And like you said, now compared to 40 years ago, compared to 30 years ago, compared to 20 years ago, compared to 10 years ago, compared to 5 years ago, we are at a place where there is some buy-in, where there is at least one advocate at every place who will believe you, who will say, oh, this is something that we need to look into. We still have places in professionals who don't buy into it. You can go to a certain doctor and the doctor will say, oh no, counseling is something terrible, you don't need that. You will you will go to a school and there are some teachers who, like you rightly said, will say, oh, that picnic just rude, and but you know, we're still labeling it something. We just are looking at what else exists. You know, there have been disorders, and like you started off, mental health is not something that we can see off the bat. It is not a broken leg. It is not even, you know, diabetes. So even though you can't see it, there is a response to a certain medication. But when it comes to mental health, it's not something that is easily identifiable. Not everything is easily treatable, and it has a whole bunch of factors that will make you
So let me ask
in a
this.
certain-
Let me ask this quickly. There seems to be a lot more focus on mental health and resulting or relating issues today than there was 20 years ago. That being said, do you find that more people, more young people are willing to come forward and express and share? Because I know 20 or so years ago, we did not have mental health as an issue to discuss, but I'm pretty certain it was right there as a recurrent problem or condition. We just never really looked at it that way. We found a way how to make do. But today, where you have this kind of conversation happening, you have resources being made available for them, those individuals, to access. Is it something that young persons are now coming to DYS, for instance, and say, you know what, I'm struggling with anxiety or depression, or, you know, perhaps my self-esteem is you know, messing with my mind type of thing? Are they more forthcoming?
I feel young people have come a long way in when they talk about mental health. The stigma, I can definitely say, is being broken slowly. I mean, it's a gradual process, of course. Not everybody is going to come out and say, I have a depression, or I've been suicidal, or so forth. However, I think that young people have come to a place that they understand that other people are going through it. And that's the most important part, because when we have one person talking about, well, I suffer from this, I suffer from anxiety, they feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only person experiencing this. And through that, and through just a normal conversation, just talking to them, how do you feel? Is everything okay? Like, you know, well, I've been feeling really down lately. I've been stressed. Like, just basic conversation. You find young people talk a lot about what they're going through. And then you can then point them to the experts and counselors, and they will talk to them and so forth. Because a lot of young people are being forthcoming now with exactly how they feel and how frustrated they are about whatever they're going through.
Last year, the Ministry of Health was working on their adolescent health strategies. So we did focus group with adolescents across the country. So we met with different adolescent groups across the country, it's about maybe 15 to 20 of them, and we talked about what they wanted us to focus on in health. How can we help them? And because mental health is my area, I can remember that mental health was on the second out of the 8 that they came up with. Above mental health, I think they had poverty, and below was the violence. So they came up and they told us mental health is an issue for us, and we want you to look into it.
Yeah.
So those are the stepping stones where all these projects are coming out from now.
Okay, so let's try to help to break down some of these barriers that we do know exist. What's changed? Why is it now that it seems that, you know, there's so many more children who have anxiety, children who are struggling, they're overwhelmed. And I know it's because before we didn't classify, but I also feel that the pressures or children are living under now are a lot different. Teasing at school, for example, that's only when I'm in front of the child. Now, with social media, with internet, you never get away from that bullying.
Yeah, there are memes made about you and all of that. So, I mean, honestly, looking at the conditions, with the resources we have now, I think they are a good thing, but they also are a very bad thing to a level, because looking at social media, that has been one of the big culprits for body shaming, for the idea of like your self-image and so forth, because the idea of nudes, all these things come out and people are really affected by it. So I think back in the days compared to now, conditions have changed.
Just the scale of it.
Yeah, the scale of it. And then like young people now are actually feeling, because teasing and the idea of like you're talking bad about me or so forth can sometimes be seen as a joke, but it's also interesting when you look at it, because a lot of young people sometimes say, okay, they're just joking around, but in reality they take it very seriously. So even those things, the idea of your thick skin, to be very honest, now I feel like compared to back in the days, young people don't have as much thick skin as before. I feel like they're much more sensitive, right? And which is okay, because I mean, you're in touch with your feelings. We're talking more about our feelings, so of course you're going to be in touch with it. So the dynamics to me are very different.
How much of a role do parents play in all of this? I'm certain that they play a crucial role, but you know, I ask simply because when you're going through your adolescent years, that's when I believe you're more distant from your parents, right? Like as a teenager, certain things I wouldn't discuss with my mom or my dad. I'd find more comfort with my peers talking about certain either physical, physiological, mental changes, that sort of stuff. How much of a role do parents play in terms of being able to try to reach out to their kids at this particular time?
That's why it's very important for parents to start from very early, because children developmentally, when we look at development throughout the lifespan, a child is closest to their parents up to age 7, and then parents don't become as important. So by the time you get to 10 years old, that's when the tweens, the whole thing starts kicking in, and you start comparing yourself to your peers. And that's where you start seeing...
And this is natural, right?
Yes. Oh, this is universal. Okay. This is in every case. This has been studied for years and years. So when you get to that age 10, then you start to you start to see your classmates as being very important. How do you fit into that when you get to 14, 15, and it's even earlier now? Your identity becomes as part of the group. It's not as important as to what's going on. That's why you have so many activities after school. That's when you start listening to a certain kind of music. You start to dress as certain things. You try on different selves, and that has to be approved by your peer set. Right? So your peers are the ones who are most important. So if your mom comes and tells you, oh, you're beautiful today, and then you go to school and the first feedback is, why you to wear that old shoes, you know? Which one is more important? Yes, which one is more important? Your peers' feedback. And so you start to see that at that age, and then depending on your coping skills and your relationship with your parents from before age 10, that's when you either you already have those values that your parents inculcated in you, and you have that as a go-to, and the parents are a touchstone at that point. because they won't have as much influence as before. But if you could have that close relationship where you can have conversations with your child, then your children will come to you. But it's very important to form that
From very early.
So how do we factor in positive reinforcement then? Because if you're telling me that as a parent, I should be able to tell my daughter, hey, you look pretty in that blouse or that whatever it is she's wearing. But then to someone else who's of her age group, you may say, well, indeed, why are you wearing that ugly shoes or what have you? How do I... I'm trying to figure...
This is such a real situation for you, I can tell. Because now you're worried that your reinforcement at home is not enough.
Because the idea of positive reinforcement is to be able to help build self-esteem,
Esteem,
build confidence, and all of these other stuff. But then if someone else is out there who you look to for their influence, if I may, then how do I balance that? How do I compete with that?
Put it into perspective. How many people liked your shoe? Is it more important than 10 people that one person says your shoe is ugly, or is it more important than 10 people say your shoe is or your outfit is amazing? So you try to have them balance it out. So you have them see there are peers who are into what I like. There are peers who do that, and that's where you will guide them to find their identity, not to reinforce necessarily what you think, but to have them clear up what they already know about themselves.
Yeah. And knowing their friends, right? This goes back to the whole know the company that your child is keeping. I'd imagine is important.
Definitely.
Now, Renata, you brought up something that I don't want to miss, because I think when we talk about young people, and I always remember we had a girls' forum once, all girls from high schools come in, and one of the most shocking things that they revealed in that conversation, and there were quite a few revelations, one was that they were in third form, fourth form, and they were saying that they would receive a nude from a peer at least once a day or once every 2 days. That was the frequencies to which children were sending out nude photographs of themselves, or somebody was spreading it about them. So we have this assault on your own privacy taking place amongst girls and boys, and parents don't know about it. And this can have such severe consequences to a child's mental health. Now, if this happens to me, Isan is my dad now. Don't imagine it your own daughter. Imagine somebody else. And you don't know, and I am suffering because this is devastating. As adults, we don't want it to happen to us. As a child, it has to be worse. How does a parent even know something is taking place? And how do you prevent suicide attempts or, just going down a bad road, as we call it, after that?
Well, I think it's like what Amy said, it's the relationship. These things start really, really early. These conversations that you have, how did your day go? It's not just what did you do in school, what was your favorite part every day, who's your friends, all these conversations that we have, we keep them going. We can't just let it just be in the first few years. If we have only up to 7 or 8 years old to build that trust between us, that's not much time, because a lot is going to happen. There's going to be a lot more influence in their lives after this. So it's important. Parenting is the most important job you'll ever do if you get the chance to be a parent. And so you have to take that with all seriousness as possible. That it's not by chance or I'm doing it on the side of this career that I have. It's the most important job. So these relationships that you have with your children, nothing is above that. And you have to remember that as parents out there. So these conversations, even if you don't have it well right now, if you don't have that type of relationship that I'm talking about right now, work on it. It can happen. You can turn that wheel around.
But we never learn to have that conversation. Like, if I am a parent, no one talked to me about it. And I think the natural thing is, well, don't you send any photos of yourself to anyone. Don't you dare.
That was what I was going to say. You want to listen. You want to listen to your child, and you want to let your child know that he or she can come to you and talk.
And
I think you said you don't know. We don't know how to have these conversations. There's no manual that comes with it. But these conversations can happen anywhere and anytime. It doesn't have to wait until a nude comes out.
Yeah.
Or when your daughter, your son said, you know, so and so got one, they're referring to somebody else. It doesn't have to be then. It can be before. It can be with the news. It can be with the commercial that we see on TV, or just driving down the store that shows lingeries in their window. We have these conversations right there. It doesn't have to be till an event.
Yeah.
I think what is important for parents to understand is when you're having a conversation with a child or a young person or adolescent, whatever it is, remember that it's a conversation, it's not a lesson, it's not a lecture. So we're having a conversation. So don't talk to me and be able to want to tell me a whole lesson and just like, you know, you're never posted this back in my day, because that's normally how the conversation starts. Because
It's
you're watching
difficult
the
to find that
news.
balance, though.
And that's the thing. The thing is, you can talk to them. You know, well, it's all about. To me, I think it's about tone too as well, and approach. And I feel that that's where a lot of parents falter. We don't know sometimes how to talk to the young people, and we don't already know that young people are sensitive. So, like talking to them any kind of way can also cause problems too. So it's like basic baby steps and so forth, and asking them, how do you feel when I say things like this? And then let them talk to you too as well, because then your child can also help you with your parenting and how you talk to them.
Isn't there a delicate balance between being able to have a conversation with a child regarding a sensitive matter versus being not necessarily an authoritarian, but to enforce your position on a matter?
So this is the thing. Who made that topic sensitive in the house? Who made it taboo in the house? The adults did,
Yeah.
right? So what I find a lot is that parents come to me and they say, I think my child might be suicidal, but I don't know how to ask. Just ask.
Yeah, just
Just ask.
yeah.
Because they're afraid if you ask something, then they will do that. It's
Yeah,
like when
trigger
HPV vaccines came out. Oh, you don't want to give your child a HPV vaccine because even though it will help with cervical cancer and, you know, those kinds of things, it's considered an STI. So if I give my child that vaccine, then that child might become more promiscuous. So that was the
Or start thinking about
yes,
sex.
or start thinking about sex. Oh, now I can have sex and I will never have cervical cancer. You know, and that's an idea that came from our community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it starts with the parent in challenging what is a taboo topic.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're being ostriches because really, I mean, the issue of sex is being introduced at such a young age that at 14 when they're getting an HPV vaccine, they know a lot more, or they think they know a lot more than you realize.
The way it's going these days, Marlene, they know a lot more than you and I when we were 14.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you see them in standard 2, they're talking about like different things about sex that, you know, I didn't
Yeah.
talk about until sixth form.
Yeah. But I mean, the music, we could go down that road a whole lot more, but I don't want to miss a valuable point here. You know, recently on World Mental Health Day, the focus was on suicide. And I always feel that we understand the responsibility of not reporting suicides, but the downside to it is that because we don't report it and we don't talk about it, people don't know how bad the problem is or what the situation is that we face. So this is an opportunity to kind of look at, okay, this is where we are. And you have 2 levels. You have the, I've tried to take my own life, and thankfully either it didn't work or someone intervened and I was saved. And you had those who completed suicide. In other words, they died. How bad is the problem in this country?
This year is a better year, if I can say that. Last year we had the highest number of suicide we ever had recorded.
Yeah?
So this year I don't know if it's the work we did, it's the work in the schools, but
Awareness or something.
the numbers are very low as compared to last year we had 31. This year we were
31
at
completed.
and this year we were at 7 or 8, I believe.
And how many attempts?
Times that by 20.
By 20.
Yeah.
I know
Okay, I
you
can't
were.
do mental math like that, but that's a lot. But
And the thing is, I just want to throw in one more
Yeah.
time. Just this might make you open your eyes too.
Yeah.
These are just that are reported.
yeah.
So all of these numbers are just
That's
because
what
they
I was
come
going to
into the
say.
counselor's office and
Yeah.
they talk about it. So let's think about the people that don't get that chance to
Yeah.
talk to a counselor.
And these numbers are typically through BHIS.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the Belize Health Information System.
So that means it's only public
As
health.
someone in
Just
private
public health.
practice, I have no duty to report.
Yeah.
Or who goes. What if they go to the private clinics? What if they go to counseling in Chetamal? A lot of these things happen, even though these events are Belizeans and it happens in Belize. We don't have appropriate numbers. And sometimes you will see a suicide that is reported in the BHIS as a death by asphyxia or something like that. So even though there was the suicide intent, it is not reported as such because depending on who your doctor is, who signed the death certificate, they might want to be considerate to the family. But in that, we look at issues where we're not seeing numbers. This is not just a problem in Belize, this is a problem worldwide.
Yeah.
So, 10 years ago when I was a part of this conversation, that was an issue then and it's still an issue now. But we have numbers now. So now it is working multi-sectorally to start collecting the data, to start seeing how we can get those private practice numbers in, how we can get all the general
Right.
information in, and how we can get even the counselors to aggregate a lot of this information because they do have a lot of information. Again, not all schools have counselors. Who do they go to? There are teachers who are the go-to person at the school. Where do they report? How do we educate them about protocol to report?
Right. Jeez, I just forgot my thought. Oh, I wanted to comment on what you were saying, Marlene, about you can't report, but you can say where you can go for help. We can talk about the work that is being done, that there is help out there, that you don't have to go through this alone. I mean, and for the parent who doesn't know how to ask, I feel like my child is suicidal and I don't know, and I come to the counselor. So it could have been about a bullying incident at school, issues with their teachers, with their best friend, or an issue right there at home, whatever may be causing that emotional pain. Start off with the hug and then let the conversation roll out. Know that you care. And I think that is one of the things, even when we have to make a diagnosis that your child might have ADHD or anxiety, or that your child is the bully at the school, start off with the hug and then have the conversation. I care, I know something is going on.
I know the three of you women were presenting to Wesley College and another high school, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of weeks back, right?
Yeah, we
So
did
do you-
September 9th.
September 9th, there we go.
Because we couldn't have a September 10th.
What is the outreach like in terms of dealing with the high schools across the city or across the country? What has that effort been like for you guys?
Well, the high schools have been very receptive. They've been welcoming us here. I mean, a few years ago, it was a bit harder, especially if there was a suicide. We were not invited, as in the Ministry of Health. They wanted to deal with it on their own. But now I think a lot of the awareness have changed their mind. They're thinking that now we're more welcome. They're open to discussing it. They want us to help write their, their protocols, how we're going to handle it, what we're going to say to the media. So they're very receptive now.
Is it time to start to consider having younger children access mental health care? Because I've always wondered, the Ministry of Education, let's be fair, the Ministry of Education does have their counseling unit.
Right.
But just to be real about this, you're talking in some cases one counselor moving around primary schools that have an average of 600 students, and kind of stopping in at each one and trying to address all these different issues that children may be going through. Is it time for us to seriously look at primary school and having their mental health needs met?
I believe
because
so.
that intervention is important from an earlier age, right?
And exactly why I believe so. If we start early, we could prevent major mental health issues later in their life. I mean, just last week I had a referral for a 2-year-old. Would you think that you would refer your 2-year-old for counseling?
Whoa.
This,
And it wasn't by the parent. It was by the psychiatrist. So they saw the psychiatrist first, and then they wanted further work.
Yeah.
So,
And the work Juliet said is being done through the Ministry of Education. We have limitations based on personnel. We don't have enough mental health people working in our community. So we have programs like health in school that they are more aware of coping.
Yeah.
So that is dependent on how comfortable the teacher is teaching these topics. But we're trying to get those in. And I feel like in the past year or two, a lot of the primary schools are, the administration in primary schools are much more receptive to referring their students as well. So they are referring to the Ministry of Health, they refer to private counseling. Pediatricians are referring a lot lately.
Yeah.
So there is already that work that has been started,
Yeah.
but we're building on that
Yeah.
slowly,
We still have
but
more
we're
to go.
building.
But, and that's a key point, we don't have the professionals to be able to, you know, back in our day, it was the nice teacher that they put as the counselor. I think it's
Right.
changed a bit since then, right? They get training to provide counseling. But aren't social workers trained to be counselors as well?
They're trained in basic counseling, yes.
Okay.
So they can just get somebody to talk about what's going on, and then when they realize what's going on and
Then
they
they
need
do
to
the
do real
referral.
intervention in maybe CBT, then the referral gets done.
And then you have a lot of the issues culturally that you mentioned earlier. We have the violence in the community that affects even the youngest children. You have trauma. You have a lot of things that happen or are the younger children are experiencing a lot more these days. So even back then you had a different set. I remember working at NCFC way back in 2004, and they were doing these studies and they were finding a lot of these things, but now it's just on a different scale.
All right, so for parents who catch this segment, you know, they're hearing all these different things that can potentially happen. Maybe they're already recognizing signs. What can they do? Because let's not ignore the fact that parenting is hard. Parenting teenagers, even harder. But what can they do differently today that will make a positive impact on their child?
As they mentioned, talk to your child.
Start the conversation.
Make that 10-minute contact in the morning work, because you don't know when else in the day you will have the time. So take those 5 minutes in the morning, have that quick check-in, have that check-in after school. Something I read recently was that the issue with children or with adolescents is that 3 to 6 o'clock time. That's when adolescents get into trouble the most, right after school.
Yeah.
So if you know what your child is doing between 3 and 6, then you have
You're good.
a heads up.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in and allowing us to have this conversation publicly, and once again reminding people of the different issues that our children may be experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the upcoming Belize International Film Festival. Please stay tuned.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituary. And reverence in death.
And we're back, and we're moving into a second conversation for today as we get the details of the upcoming Belize International Film Festival. We have with us on set Film and Media Arts representative for the film unit at Niche, Suzette Zaiden. And we have Ariane Cano, who is the program assistant for the festival. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. So many great things happening. We always look forward to the film festival. And I want you to just give us an update as to where we are on that timeline.
Okay, we're going into the 14th Belize International Film Festival this year. It's going to start on Wednesday, November 6th and conclude on Sunday, November 10th. So it's a very packed 5 days. We have several categories. They are feature narrative, feature documentary, short documentaries. This year we've introduced the branded entertainment, which is a category where we're trying to encourage our illustrious film industry professionals who refuse to do creative work on their own, but are doing fantastic work for commissions, for commission work. But we wanted to showcase their skills to any visitors at the festival. So we didn't create the category; it existed. We introduced it to our festival.
So branded means like commercials, music videos.
It's kind of like a narrative, but it's let's look at the Boeing commercials that have been done. So there's a story that is not about the bear. It's just branded by the bear, but it's its own creative story. We've have like 3 entries in that category. There's also one from the Carl Huchner Hospital they're about 3 minutes long. And they could be considered shorts, but they're definitely a message. Like for instance, there one that tells about a day about several different parts of the country and what happens when you need assistance and you just kind of like see a day in Belize as well.
Like those infomercials that people do for the businesses, for example.
Right. That might not necessarily be about the cup that we're talking about, but at the end the cup logo might come up at the end.
Nice.
So that we thought was a good way to we were called and asked about it, and we said, you know what, it's time to start looking at different categories that could incorporate our Belizean talent in other ways. And we also have the Green Globe section, which is we partner with the environmental community on. So it's basically environmental films that we look, and it's our partners. Our main partners are WWF and MARFUN. And they reach out to the rest of the environmental community and they do a panel discussion. So the Green Globe program this year will take place on the 2nd day of the festival. It will have, we will screen films for the schools at the Bliss, 9:30 and 1:30. And it will be like an hour-and-a-half program of environmental films in the day, and in the evening at 6 o'clock we will do the panel discussion with members of government who are with the environment and environmental community. They will do 3 panels. What we've been talking about is the topics that will be discussed, and we hope many of the students who are studying environment and all the citizens who are concerned about different environmental issues come out to the Bliss and be a part of the discussion. We will be looking at the first session. We'll talk about. Sorry, I'm just. Is going to look at the new ban that was put in place against styrofoam and plastics, and it's not that it has been put into effect. What now? How long will it take? What's happening now? The second one will look at the issue of the sargassum that is still affecting our communities or coastal communities, and the third is going to look at the new coral disease that has been starting to spread. So basically looking at solutions. So that's the Green Globe. We're very excited because we've always wanted to have a Green Globe element to the festival because of what Belize is an environment. So we're happy for that addition.
I wanna step back just a bit. You said it's going to be the 14th film festival. It's not consecutive. There was a break at one point, right?
Right.
You know, the whole purpose was really to shed light on an industry that is important in understanding culture, sharing culture, and kind of building an identity for the country. How would you say we're doing in terms of growing in this department?
Well, first it was to stimulate the industry. We are growing. This year we have quite a few entries, not only from the diaspora, from the Belizean diaspora, but also from homegrown talent. We have quite a number of shorts. I would say at least five definite Belizean shorts that we weren't expecting. And we're seeing an increase, because that had, like I said, that had always been our concern, that the talent is here, but they weren't making creative work. They were just doing what we all do. Do a job. Eat, get something to eat. So no, it's there, it's coming out. We have, well, the one that's opening the festival, the opening short, is a combination of diaspora and Belizean personnel. It's called My Father Belize. Tequane and the Duende will also be featuring in the festival. We will be screening those as part of the school program, the environmental program. There is one from Carlo Habet called Time for Eat. There's one from Rosenda Ball called The Haunted Wife. There's one called IGF from Lester Lewis in Belmopan. He's been studying film abroad as well. There is at least two more. I know there's a feature coming out of Cayo from Daniel Velasquez called The Bottle. So it's a lot. We were quite pleasantly surprised.
We're getting more entries from people in Belize producing, whether short or feature in this case. And this is a great time to bring Arian in, because you recently graduated from SJC with commercial and graphic design. So you clearly have an interest in film and television.
I've always wanted to pursue film. I thought that was my career goal, that's the end goal. And now I'm starting to see a lot of youths now, especially doing with social media too. They have, you said recently, earlier in a conversation, TikTok. That's all people want is just to put themselves in front of a camera and entertain people. We have JK from Instagram. We have all these people who want to entertain us, and so not only through that, but through storytelling. And Belize on a whole is culture. And what is culture? Culture is stories passed down from generations through a campfire. And now we could do that through writing, we could do that through like performance. And I personally believe that film as a medium is the greatest, I think, of all compelling art, because it takes various art forms out there and it just comes together, because it takes writing, painting, it has performance, writing, costume design, music, all these things accumulated to create a singular cohesive piece, or you know, and so it try to convey, evokes an emotion in all of us. So
Arian, you know, your generation, you guys grew up producing. I mean, if I look at some of the YouTube channels, some of the Instagram videos that are put out, I mean, people are even editing videos, I think, better than some of the professionals I see in this country just for their social media content. So you are producers without even seeking a career in it. Why do you personally want to take it to the next level in doing television and film?
Well, Like I said, Belize as a whole has a lot of stories to tell,
Yeah.
and we've had films before come to Belize, and we have a beautiful scenery and
Yeah.
the people and everything that we see movies abroad go all over the globe.
Yeah.
But Belize is our best kept secret,
Yeah.
and while we would like to keep it that way, we'd also want to show the world what we have to offer. I want to bring in that so we could share that.
Wait,
Yeah.
sorry. Can I interject?
Yeah.
When
Sure.
you guys are talking about TikTok just now and
Yeah.
talking about the followers and stuff, in fact, that is the story. One of the films that we had in the having this in the selection, which we showed already at the media launch, was called Sprinter from Jamaica, and in fact, the main character was this director stumbled on the main character because someone said this guy has the largest following. He found a friend who was watching it, and they said this guy is super funny, and he looked at all the followers, and he was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to use this guy. This is the person I want. So that is also how the ones who are on YouTube and doing it for fun and likes, they're the ones that are also going to be able to cross over into the feature films and other stuff.
We have seen it all over. You don't need a big production company. You have your camera and computer at home. You have your
Yeah.
phone. That's it. You can make a movie off an
Just your
iPhone.
phone, yeah.
And I wanted to interject also. The reason why a lot of kids are producers on their own is because they don't necessarily have to go to school anymore for film, although that still is an option. YouTube is there, Skillshare is there. There's all these things that you could just workshops that you could sign up for.
Yeah.
But also, I would like in for the future that schools in Belize try to incorporate that into their curriculum, because I chose graphic design because that was the closest medium
Yeah.
of my skill set that I could probably use to go abroad and do study film and production.
Nice.
This is why we need to have a youth with us at all times, because we would be severely out of touch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think
We have a-
movies will ever be passé. I think it's just the way we distribute that has changed,
The
but people
delivery.
still consume. I mean, you spend hours and hours on Netflix watching movies or series or whatever it is, because we still want to have that level of entertainment. There is kind of a situation, I think, in Belize, and Ariane mentioned it, that we do have stories to tell, but nobody seems to want to or have the resources to capture these stories and distribute them as a part of a film. What do you think it will take for us to get there?
I think you're wrong, actually. As I mentioned, there's so many that went ahead and submitted shorts this year, submitted a feature this year. They think all of those are low budget productions, but actually the quality is not bad. I looked at a short film, The Haunted Wife, for instance, and the amount of, this guy said he spent maybe $1,000, but most of that was just on getting the effects, the makeup effects, because it's kind of like a horror film too,
The lighting.
and the fog machine. But other than that, it was all family helping, and that's what it is. Your support system. Many films are made where somebody mortgaged their house, or their mother cook the food, or the neighbors down the street, they help out. It's just friends and cousins, everybody do a role, and it's just. And they are all self-taught. Like he said, they go on YouTube and they watch, and you get it done because you have a passion inside
Isn't
to get
this
it
somewhat
done.
of a departure from the traditional or the formal way of putting stuff together?
It's not a departure, it's just how it gets done. You get that first thing done, and then you get noticed, and then somebody says, oh, I like that, and you've shown me passion, you've shown me that you can do it. Why don't I give you something? Sometimes you don't even have to ask after a while. And they're like, because I know you can get it done. You're not just asking me for everything. I can see that you want to get it done. And that's how it works. That's how, what's the guy named Robert Rodriguez began. And then he got interest, and the mariachi was done with Antonio Banderas. That's how you get noticed. You have to start.
Yeah.
You have to
You have to
begin.
put something out there. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. Nobody will just give you money because you said I can do it without showing any proof.
Now, you know, you spoke of being proud of having more Belizeans enter into the festival, but the festival itself has been getting more entries. It's something that people want to participate in.
It is actually. We have films. We're really interested in getting films from the Caribbean, and this one's from Curacao actually, from the Caribbean and from Central America. Those are our core markets. We join. We are trying to, but we still want films from around the world to keep us in check in a way, and so we can balance and see what's going on. It's all part of the mechanics of running a festival. You have to. If you want to be recognized internationally, you're going to have some big hitters in there as well.
Yeah.
It can't just be a little showcase in the corner, or else, although that has its benefits as well in the development aspect, but you want
But it
big
would help.
hitters to come with the money to also come and see what you're doing. So you have to spread it around. But these are documentaries. This one is actually very interesting. The 1 Foot Down, that's submitted by a British journalist, and it looks at the shooting of a man shortly after when the British were transferred here, after the Falkland Wars, and it seems that he claims in this documentary that they were suffering from post-traumatic stress and in a way, I'm going to say trigger happy, and so there is a case where he shot this 1 foot man, and they were saying because he was going to run. I don't know. So he comes back. Apparently, after a certain amount of years, the records can be released, and so he's been doing this sort of research. So that's something I think could be, from an investigative journalist point of view, something interesting to look at. So he's been submitting. We got a lot of entries this year from Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Egypt, surprisingly, we got a few from the Philippines.
Total, I think we got about 60 countries submitting.
About 60 countries submitting. South Africa came back. We're actually talking to them again. This is about half of the entries of over 250 entries must have come from Brazil this year. Wow. Brazil was really sharing their film stuff.
But that shows two things. One, and I think the more important point, is that there's a level of esteem in being able to garner the awards for more international film festival. That's excellent.
Yeah, so again, as I said, Egypt is coming. The Caribbean is starting to come back. But we also wanted to talk about another program that we're working on.
Sure.
It's called Me and My TV. Which will
it's a series that's premiering here.
It'll be premiering here on Channel 5 next week, Monday.
Yes.
Starting at, is it 8:30, 7:30?
Yes. Rick, thumbs up, 8:30? That's right.
8:30.
Yeah.
And we're hoping this is a program that we at Niche have been working with for the past 4 years. It's called the Caribbean Tales Incubator Series. And what it is a training program for producers, producers and scriptwriters in a way, but it's mostly producers, because what they do is the call is sent out and you are asked to send in your project. So projects that you're developing, and they ask you to complete a checklist, that you have a script written, that you have a budget in place, that you have a marketing plan, that you have a publicity plan. I mean, pretty much, did you have your chain of copyright intact? And then what they do is for 1 week in September in Toronto, the finalists go to Toronto and they do a workshop, a pitching workshop, and they're mentors from around the Caribbean and Caribbean diaspora. I'm one of the mentors for the past 4 years, and it's amazing the projects that pass through them. They're like the creme of the creme from the Caribbean, and they go through a session where we're led by Christopher Laird from Banyan. Keith Nurse is also a member of the board. Francis Ann Solomon, a Caribbean filmmaker, this is her brainchild. She just got accepted into the motion picture of Academy Arts. But pretty much what this thing is, this is a reality series that was shot at the 2016 workshop. So it follows all the participants that came that year. So their arrival, they talk to the camera, and they go through the process all the way up to the end, which is the big pitch.
So what you're doing is using entertainment, a reality series, to do a crash course for any person who's watching on what it takes to put together from, you know, and I love that you talk about copyright issues, kind of laying all the groundwork, finalizing all the information, fine-tuning your pitch, and then selling it.
Right. Well, the part with the development process is done online before the week.
Okay.
The week it's total pitch. As they arrive at the welcome dinner, they have to introduce themselves and their project. So it's like straight off the plane you are pitching.
Yeah.
The next morning you got to pitch your project again, and then they switch and they see, have you pitched enough that your partner knows how to pitch your project? Have you given enough information? Did he understand what it is? And it's all, you have to do it in 3 minutes. And so they're also given training. We started adding also workshop elements where people from Telefilm would come in and said, well, this is how we would put money. If we like your film, this is what it is. Or if you co-produce with a Canadian, this is what it is. Different film commissions have come in and also taught, this is what we do in Belize, this is what we do in Jamaica, this is what. So it's also an information element for producers. Maybe I should do a co-production with Belize. Maybe I should do a co-production with Canada. And then you're also there at Canada in Toronto at the same time the Toronto International Film Festival is going on. So you are also being trained. This is how you work the market.
Yeah.
So you're told, go to the parties, and you just say, hi, how are you? What are you doing?
I
Oh,
know
I
this
have a film. You really are doing elevator pitches all the way.
Yeah.
But the
You're
last,
working the room.
you're working the room. They should teach you.
Have we ever had any Belizean participate?
We've had 2 Belizean projects. A few years ago, we had Cristobal Cruzan participate with Life After Death. Life and Death, I believe. But that project had won one of the final awards. They did not finish raising all the finance. The finance that they would have won was contingent on them raising all it and having Caribbean Tales also be the showrunner, overseeing it completely developed. So that project did not take off. This year, the same group from My Father Belize applied to do the feature-length version of My Father Belize. So they were one of the finalists. They had over 50 submissions from the Caribbean. It was the group partnered with the Caribbean Development Bank. There's this new fund that's out called Creative Industries Innovative Fund, and so they were one of Caribbean Tales was one of the recipients, and so through that fund they were able to bring in 5 out of the 11 projects from the Caribbean to pay for two member teams, so the producer and the scriptwriter could go along, because a lot of it is also asking them, what's your story? Do you even know your story? You're like, oh, I have this fantastic film, I'm going to have shootouts, and I'm going to have this, and I'm going to have car chases, and they're like, what's your story? That's not your story. And then you're like, oh, well, then there's going to be this
a love story somewhere.
And they're like, you're still not telling me anything. Why? You're giving me a plot. You're like, so it's a lot of that. There's tears, there's anger, there's...
If somebody, let's say Ariane, who wasn't involved with the film festival, hasn't had this exposure, watches it, do you think it's also something that will teach about the important aspects of what you have to learn or cover if you want to make it into this industry?
I think it's also inspiring. It serves several purposes. It's showing you, the Belizean person with a project in your hand, all the steps you really need to be going through. You can't just go up to people and say, I have this idea.
Yeah.
You have to do your homework.
How to fine tune it.
It's also advertisement in a way, because there's next year. We're going to be accepting calls for the next year submission come February. So you look at this now, you can start calling. You can start calling us at Niche and say, what should I do? And we'll be happy to help guide you into at least getting your submission elements together so you can submit.
Yes. All right. So that premieres?
That premieres Monday, October 28th on Channel 5 at 8:30 p.m. It's only half hour, so don't tune in at night.
All right, so that's one of the things you can watch out for. But in the meantime, there's also the International Film Festival, which starts on November.
It's in 2.5 weeks. Wednesday, November 6th.
And we can you'll put out the calendar
we're going to put out the calendar very soon. We're co-producing the festival this year with the Embassy of Taiwan. And so the opening night feature is going to be an animated feature from Taiwan called On Happiness Road. Both those films for opening night, it starts at 6. Don't miss 6. Shark will begin at 6. And the ceremony starts at 7, and the feature film immediately after. They look at it's like looking back at your life. Did you do what you set out to accomplish? So even though it's an animated film and people might think it's a kid movie, it's really a very deep personal film, and it's been breaking box records in Taiwan from its start. So it's gotten lots of high ratings. So it's very recommended.
Something you don't want to miss.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, telling us about the show that premieres next week, and also some of the details of the upcoming festival. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be discussing a bit more of that as the date gets closer as well.
Yes, we will.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, it's to talk about the macaroni competition at the University of Belize. You'll find out more after the break. are back, and we've been telling you repeatedly about this segment, but we'd be talking about the macaroni competition, and we weren't lying, it's real macaroni, just not used the way you normally use it. Actually, we have some representatives of the University of Belize with us to tell us more about this competition. We have Novali Ramos, who is a student, Jalen Pascasio, who's also a student. We have Termagin Pereira from the engineering department, Cleveland Stain, also a student, Stephanie Perez, a student as well, and on the end, lecturer for the engineering department, Lloyd Carrillo. Good morning, everybody, and welcome.
Thank you very much for bringing us to this segment.
Yeah.
We're enthusiastic. This is
And
our...
we're going to be learning about engineering using macaroni.
That is correct.
Okay, so tell us how this ties together.
Well, when I came in on board to the University of Belize 11 years ago, I saw the need for students to jump into something new, something productive, and something that would take in their attention.
Yeah.
Right? So I said, all right, why wouldn't we do some models in the structures class to try see how much loading can it take for them to know more or less what's going on outside of our doors, right? And we have bridges, we have cranes being designed through the macaroni.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it's just a macaroni, we eat that every day with fettuccine or whatever, you know? But it can also be a structural kind of thing where students would get involved, like we have in front of us, and stick it together with the glue sticks and put it together and form bridges, cranes, and so forth. Right?
In the overall scheme of things, right? How does this aid in terms of them learning basic engineering concepts and what have you?
Well, we have a course that is by name Structures 1. We deal with framing structures there, analyzing the trusses, the joints of each member, and so forth. And we have to calculate that. Right? This is just the beginning of a larger scope of engineering. Right? And here we deal with architects and future engineers. So we have to analyze that from the basics. From there we go on. This competition is done here in-house in Belize City by myself, and well, I have my crew now. And then the first, second, and third place winners go to Chetumal to participate on a larger competition. Over there now, it's just basically for Mexicans, but they go to a larger one in Monterrey, where they will be showcasing models and so forth. And there, even larger companies reach there and try to get the design. So it's just a small thing, and this is actually to scale on a scale model that is giving off. Right?
So let's hear from the students about participating in this competition. Yeah,
Sorry.
whoever.
Okay. First of all, thank you again for having us. And the entire competition, a lot of us tend to look forward to it because it's a second year competition, right? Your third semester, Structures 1 of Branch of Physics. And from you start, you see your other students, the older students, doing the competition. And you're like, okay, when we get our hands on it and being able to do it and input, we're prompted to do, to input the skills we learn in class, like calculating the trusses, the tension and compression members. And being able to do that and actually see our structure being built and working, winning, is very out of this world.
Because you guys won in the Chetumal competition.
Yeah, well, we're just starting, so we're taking part in this competition coming up Thursday, and they have won.
You guys won, right? With the structure to the front.
The crane.
Crane. Okay. Yes. And tell me about competing.
Well, in Belize, it was pretty in-house. We knew everyone because we practically saw each other every day on campus. But when we got to Chetumal, it was a whole different ballgame because the room was bigger and we didn't see outside until I think it was night. We reached early in the morning and we just worked, and we even forgot to eat. But good thing they still brought us food, and we were still gluing together the macaroni while trying to eat, and it was really fun because, and then we ran into a problem because our initial design, it was exact to specifications. So we had to at least increase it by maybe 1 centimeter. And Stephanie, she's always the one in the group who is frantic and making sure that everything gets done. And she's like, what will we do now? What will we do now? And like, I just told her, like, we could just extend it 1 centimeter, which isn't a lot. So like, we like designing it in class and calculating the forces in the members is one thing, and then actually doing it is another thing, because you have to improvise and think, but how will this affect the whole system when a load is applied to it?
So you plan on paper first, right?
Yes.
So you do all the science work before.
Yeah, we do all the theory, and we design, we draw to scale, and well, when we reach there, all we need to do is just to follow it. But like he said, we ran out of we had a little mistake, so we just had to improvise. Yet following to calculations, making sure everything was okay, and well.
My question has to do more of from a universal point of view, in that the field of engineering is often seen as a male-dominated area of study or work. What got you guys involved? What prompted you to take this particular course and to offer yourself for this competition?
And it's funny you mention that, because I have to explain it like every week, honestly. Because starting from, I know myself, I'm a girl of 1,000 questions. I want to know what, why, how, a lot of stuff. And walking around with a T-square, because you have to do drawings, physical drawings. First thing they ask is, architecture, right? Because they assume that females is just for designing. And that's where we would stop them and tell them, no, engineering. And they were like, okay, weird. But I got into engineering specifically because I like I said, like to know why and how. And as much as architecture, you'll do the designing or whatever. Engineering, we get to calculate, and I get to see my product, what I calculated, work. Right? And that's me answering my own question. Right?
Yeah. Are you, your classes are mostly male?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many females in the program?
Yes, very few, very few. Basically, maybe about 25 total. You can count them. It's more male dominant that is there, and well, hopefully by next year we will be joining the bigger and larger campus in Belmopan. That engineers propose to move to Belmopan now, move from Freetown and go over there. Hopefully it happens, but if not, we enjoy being here in Belize City. Take me around, and we like to do these things, right? Just to mention, this competition will be done this week. On Thursday, they actually do the model making. Right now, they are actually doing their designs and preparations for Thursday.
How do you decide what they're going to design?
We sit down on a small committee. We plan out some criteria to how they're going to work with this. That's the reason why I brought some different type of materials. You have macaroni, you have spaghetti being the main material that is going to be used along with the glue sticks. But then we also, at times, we put in paleta sticks, we put in straw, and a bottle. Right, so they will cut that bottle and form it. If you can see, you might think those are straws actually roll up on the macaroni, but it's a bottle. They cut out the bottle, and in this one here, it's actually a can that was given.
I thought it was tape, actually.
No.
Now I realize some are straws and some are the plastic bottles cut out.
And this here is part of a can. They actually can juice that you buy at the store. They cut it up, and they have. So they are given certain criteria that they will have to venture into and design and think of how to utilize it. No?
And they're all weight-bearing structures that they have to create. So in other words, how do you make a macaroni lift? What is it, 70 kilos?
72 kilos.
72 kilos, which is what the first structure can hold. And that's kind of the...
That was the winner in Chetumal.
Wow. All right, we're gonna have to see how that works. But let me bring it over here for a second so you guys can. Oh, you don't have a microphone. Okay, so let's see the test with the bridge.
The test with the bridge now, you have these weights. These weights are placed at certain intervals. We normally begin with 1 kilo, and then from there we gradually, every 20 minutes, it's timed. We put another weight on top. Sorry, 20 seconds. Sorry. So it's as gradually we go up. So we have there's 2 kilos, then we have 5 kilos, then we have the 10 kilos. So in-house here in Belize City, the most that our model has taken is like 38 kilos. in-house here. But in Chetumal, the criteria changed a bit, so it went up to like 72 kilos.
Wow.
So I try to always balance off my criteria with theirs, even though we get for their criteria maybe by next week, because we already planned this one here. So we might by next week we're supposed to get their criteria and then work with that criteria and go there and participate. So there will be a difference.
So you're going to show us? Because I don't think anybody believes that that can hold 70 kilos.
Well, I'm sure guys want
You
to
can help here.
hold it
how
and
do
see
you-
if you can take a couple.
Well, at 2 years old, that model has already been
Yeah, but
compromised in a
Yes,
sense.
Could be.
How old is it?
This is from 2016.
Okay, so yeah, so it's almost 3 years old.
Yeah. So
But we're gonna see how much.
Normally, you put a bar through here, which we forgot today, and it goes somewhere there. Let's put it on so that everybody can see there, and then we start to put the kilos on it, right?
And this is where our hearts start to pound faster and faster.
Oh my
every,
God.
every 20 seconds, we start,
they add loads
we
to it.
start to add, and then it gets as much as it can until it start to actually fracture and failure start to occur. When this has maybe like a hammock, right? So when that's get like that or eventually broke, then the structure has failed.
Wow.
Right? Well, that's the amount.
So it's a way or a measure to test the structural integrity of.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. And students take here, we normally take we start at 8 o'clock and we finish at 4 due to students having to travel. So
Yeah.
we don't want to give them more time. In Chetumal, it's at 12 hours
Yes.
Wow.
competition. So we start at 8 in the morning or their time and finish at 8 in the night.
What's in it for students once they win? I know it's a competition, so there must be some kind of prize or reward. at
We
the
have
end.
some prizes that we will be giving them this year due to having some sponsors helping us this year. So we have a couple prizes here in-house, like maybe T-shirts, some USBs, some lanyards, a couple mugs on UB, the logo and everything. No? And out there, they have shirts again, they have tablets, they give tablets to the first place winners, second place winners, different size tablets, and the third place winner will be maybe some nice bags, pretty bag, and then you get a Lee cash prize too, right? So that's what.
But I guess the incentive is the bragging, right?
Yes, the bragging rights. And to mention, these here are associate degree students.
Let's try another one.
Right.
You guys are trying to get off. Look at me, I'm trying to break it, right?
Yeah, I know, right? So we have that one there. So maybe take off that and we go put the 5.
Wow. Still holding up after all this time?
I'll figure out some point we'll get
There you go, all right.
Right? That's where the cracking stops.
Yeah.
And then it actually fails, right?
If you want to be clear, this is a 3-year-old model.
Yeah.
That has already won
Yeah.
with 70 kilos.
Yeah. And then on Friday, we're going to do the testing here in campus at the ITVET compound at the basketball court. We're going to have it open. I have invited already some high schools to come and watch it. I invite you guys, if you can have the time to maybe send somebody to do a video and get the clips. No?
So talk to me about how you help the students in preparing. Is there like a mentorship built in to guide them in the right direction?
Well, basically, it is, yes, like I do mentor them at times because I'm the one that like assists Mr. Carrillo when it comes to purchasing and dealing with the criteria. I'm also on the committee he forms. I am also a past student of his as well, and I did the competition in-house, though we did not win, but my other colleagues won. But we did go to show moral support, and how it goes, since sometimes like now they want like a little area for themselves on campus so that they can see their design, see if it fits, so they can do it on the model making day, which is Thursday. So I actually assist them with telling them how they can go about doing it. They ask me what are the type of the materials, what will it be like, and also I'm the one that helps control with the weight of the material, because that is a part of it too. The max weight you can have with the structure itself is the amount of materials we give you. Anything above that is a sort of, well, it is a penalty as well. And we have had structures that has gone borderline with the minimum weight and with maximum weight as well. You cannot have more than what we give you. So that is how I help assist Mr. Carrier as well.
Yeah, because we give them a set amount of material, and everything that is given is weight. So if any additional material is put on the plate, we will definitely know.
But the glue have weight? You know, use the glue?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so you count the glue, you weigh the glue sticks.
Yes, everything is weight.
Once you already construct it, then we weigh it before they actually test to how much weight it can hold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that nobody brings in any additional material. and one
Some kind of super glue that may make it stronger.
And one thing we always tell them that whenever you start doing your model, please stay, at least one person on the team has to stay within the premises to take care of your material.
Yeah.
You never know, somebody else one material.
Yeah. Somebody gets fishy.
And what you want to tell us about preparing for the competition?
Well, preparing is kind of the biggest part of the entire thing. For the past week, myself, Novely, and 2 other of our group members, we've gathered at least twice from 8 to about 4 o'clock in the evening, and we've sat down, look at designs that we have researched, and see what parts of each structure and past structures where failure would be most occurrent and how we can work around that. And we feel like we've came up with a very good design that will take us to Chatham Hall. No offense to the other groups. But if you put in time and dedication, you very well will see it show off in the competition. And one of the important things to remember in our field of work is that there are 2 main forces that act in each structure. There is tension and compression, and each member reacts differently to each type of force. A rule of thumb is that steel is strong in tension but weak in compression, and concrete vice versa. So in macaroni and spaghetti, there are certain members, depending on their orientation, they hold better up to tension and to compression. So that is important in our design, and it's very fun to participate with each other. You get to have personal jokes. You listen to your own music, and it's very entertaining. It may seem boring for 12 hours, but it's very entertaining.
And that's key, because you mentioned the differentiation, and I didn't realize, I was only seeing macaroni, I didn't realize you use spaghetti as well. Spaghetti is solid, whereas macaroni has the hollow inside. So you use both together. You play off the strengths.
Yes.
You see how one would help the other in whichever member, and whether it increases the compression strength or tension strength.
Nice.
This is interesting. It sounds very detailed in how you have to put it together. My question is, how do you come up with the challenge? I mean, we've seen more and more challenges in the country have been looking at where our national priorities are, you know, or where we have gaps and challenges. Is that how you move this competition as well?
Well, we are, as an architect professionally, I analyze what's going on in the country as well, and I always try to give that to my students. Right? Designing bridges, cranes, and so forth is just a minimum part where we can assist them. Because they will then venture out to bachelor's degree, master's, doctorate if possible. And then they will come back and help us build our nation. Right? We need Kendall Bridge, long time ago. Right, and other bridges, Rowan Creek Bridge being built right now.
All over will be built.
You must pass these bridges and have lots of questions as well, right?
And with building it, you're like, when you're passing, you're like, oh wait, okay, I know what that is now, and I know how that works. So it does answer a lot of my questions, like I say.
What is load bearing and that sort of stuff, right?
Or when you pass that single bridge, the single bridges on the Hummingbird.
Those are very scary. They're scary, especially in the night time.
Oh, yes.
And I hope that now we are doing much better in engineering, and people are traveling the highways on a better safety mode now. And that's what always comes first. That's what we teach them here as well, that safety is a factor of whatever, whenever you design something, you have to be always safe.
So the Belize competition is Thursday. And then the winner from that goes to Chatham Hall?
It will be Thursday, the model making. Because remember, this has to take about 8 hours to build. Right? So that entire day, then we store it in the office, the chair's office, Mr. Kaitan's brother. We store it there, and on the Friday now at 8:30 we're going to have a small ceremony there in front for everybody to get a history on what's happening with this competition. And then at 9 we're supposed to begin the testing of each model. We have 10 teams actually doing this.
What are they creating? Bridges this time?
Yes, pure bridges.
Okay.
And the top 3, first, second, and third place winners will be going to Chatham Mall on the 12th to start the competition on the 13th at 7 o'clock our time, which is 8 o'clock their time. So we have to be there before. We normally leave Belize City like 4.
And you create a whole new item there.
And there you have to sit down 12 hours straight. So this year, due to our sponsors, and thank you very much to all sponsors, we have one night before. We're going to stay, they're going to relax, fresh.
Yeah, and not be tired.
Not be tired because they reach boom, they reach tired and right into 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty nice experience, but it's very tiring. So this year we're going to be doing different. We're going to stay one night before the model making, and then the Thursday will be the testing there. And there is normally about 38 teams.
Yeah.
Minimum. That's the minimum.
More pressure because they're not your classmates. You don't know what they're capable of, right?
Yeah, like I mentioned, they are bachelor students, engineers about to graduate, or those that are there in the system already. And these are just associate students. And we competing. Up to now, we have not reached top 20. We are always top 10, or maybe the most will be 18th.
Yeah.
But that's.
So you guys pass on tips as to how to be prepared for the Cheraman competition?
Well, if we don't make it this year, we might give tips.
Oh, you're competing again.
We might give tips, but if we do make it, well, of course we'll still help out each other because at the end of the day, we're all there representing UB, but on a bigger scale representing Belize and showing that we're capable of also not just competing against a higher level, but other people from another country.
Okay. Great. So what can you build out of macaroni? Isani? I see a glue gun. I saw a glue gun.
When I thought of macaroni, I thought of a pot.
That's
and
what
some
most
water.
people do. Yeah. All right, but we do want to thank you for coming in. Of course, if people want to drop in and see the models, that's on Friday because you'll be doing all the groundwork before and putting it together on Thursday. Yeah. It is a very interesting program and surely a way to...
Also, we're going to be showcasing what engineering department has done over the years. We're going to have a mini open day for everybody to see what else the engineering department, because apart from engineers, we also have the architecture program, we have the building construction, engineering construction program, we have the mechanical electrical programs.
Yeah.
So we are showcasing what we have done throughout the years for everybody to see, apart from what the competition would be. And then I would like to thank my sponsors, if I can. I would like to give thanks to the gold sponsors this year. We have BNE, we have CBA, Central Building Authority, and we have Atlantic Bank being our gold sponsor this year. Silver sponsors, we have the Association of Architects and the Association of Engineers, West Track, student government from here in Belize City, and I think, Belize City Council. They came in, actually came in yet this year, but they're also assisting us silver. Last year they were gold, but this year silver. We still thank them for that, right?
But still grateful
and then we have the honorable sponsors like Bowen and Bowen. They're giving us some snacks and the bottles to be utilized for the material as part of the materials. Right? We have Maria Chang also. They always give us the macaroni and the spaghetti. Each year we do this competition.
That's great. They give it to you for free.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then Full Tech also is putting part in this competition. So we have more sponsors. I'm happy this year with them, and this can be bigger and better. And that's the reason why we're doing it all for the public to see, so that everybody knows what engineering is doing.
All right. Well, best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see what you all come up with on Friday. Thank you for coming in and telling us all about it. We're going to go ahead now and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.
over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited recognizes the
We are back, Marlene, and that was a full show today.
Yeah.
We touched on a range of topics from mental health to film to macaroni.
I know. Yeah, it kind of makes me know what I want for lunch now. No, but you know, I think one very important topic talking about adolescents and mental health. And we do hope that people were able to learn just a bit about what's really happening. I think I don't want to lose the opportunity to talk about, you know, what the statistics were last year for suicide. You know, I think it was 31 completed suicide, and it's like over 1,000, I think, attempted, and that's pretty serious.
Those are the ones that were reported that came into the system.
So it's not something to be taken lightly. People are struggling emotionally. And we may continue to ignore it, but at what cost? So don't take for granted the need to have conversations with your adolescents or children in general. Right?
And of course, if you are someone who's interested in particular about films and what have you, there is the upcoming International Film Festival.
Yeah.
And of course, it's an opportunity to get a first-hand look at some of the features that are going to be presented during the festival.
That's right. And also remember on Friday you can stop by the IT Vet compound. That's where the UB engineering students will be showcasing their structures made of macaroni, and it's very interesting to see, and they put a lot of work into it, so do go on out and see a bit of the work that they do. Also remember that we'll be having our newscast at 6:30 with all the updates on the news items we discussed earlier, including the drug plane that was found, the murder that took place over the weekend, and other issues as well. Also, that tomorrow we have KTV Latino. Tickets are available here at Channel 5 on Coney Drive, at 88 Shopping Center on Central American Boulevard, and Smart Belize's office on Albert Street. The show is tomorrow at 8:30. Do make it a date to come on out and see. But that's all the time we have. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Drop me a line at marlene_OOYE at channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and then Instagram at OYE Belize. And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together